Hello and welcome to Guy Cocker's Video Games Podcast, episode 18 on the 3rd of September 2013. I'm your host, Guy Cocker, and on this week's show I'm joined by two of the UK's finest video game public relations professionals to discuss this week's news, address your feedback and give away some cool prizes. My first guest today is Simon Callaghan, a PR professional with 17 years experience with companies including EA, Atari, and he helped to launch the Sega Dreamcast as well. He now runs PR agency Johnny Atom. Simon, thanks very much for joining me.
Well, pleasure to be here.
How are you doing today? How's your Monday?
Yeah, not too bad as Mondays go. Enjoying the weather. Getting into the week very slowly.
You mentioned a pub lunch on a Monday. It's impressive.
Oh, well, it's 25 degrees outside. It's got to be done, really.
Yeah, it's rude not to. My second guest is Gareth Williams, a PR specialist with Premier PR, who represents some of the biggest publishers in the business, including 2K, Warner Brothers, and Namco Bandai. And prior to that, he was a games journalist as well. Gareth, thanks very much for coming on the show.
Thanks. Can I ask a question?
Yes, go for it.
When you said finest, did you mean as in work, or do you mean like fine?
Just very good looking. Very good looking.
Your
work's terrible.
This is the only reason I agreed to appear on this.
Face for radio, isn't it?
Yes, for radio. Well, thanks very much for joining me, guys. Before we get into the show, please, whatever you think about the podcast, email me on podcast@guycocker.com. I'll read everything, and if you let me know, I'll read the comments out on the next show. So, guys, I'm sure my listeners know and hear a lot about what public relations professionals do in the video game industry, but can you tell me a bit about what you do? Let's start with you, Gareth.
It varies every single day. Part of this being the best job in the world, apart from being rich and staying at home, is every day my day is different. I could be doing a spreadsheet in the morning, which is what every PR person does. They deal with spreadsheets and databases an awful lot. I could be doing that, and then later on I could be at a video shoot or a photo shoot, or I could be doing a press event, or I could be flying off to some strange corner of the world, although that doesn't happen too often. Just in case any of my clients are listening, I'd like that to happen a little bit more.
You missed out on Gamescom, didn't you, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I've already done GDC and E3 this year, so I've basically lucked out. The air miles are up, which is great. But I used to live in Germany, so I love German food. Currywurst, hot dogs from Schnell Imbiss. Mm-hmm. They serve beer in McDonald's. Clubs are open till 6 in the morning.
What's pork knuckle about? It seems to be a big thing over there.
Pork knuckle's amazing, but the best German food... there's two best German foods. There is Jäger Schnitzel, which
sounds like
Jäger bomb with Schnitzel. It's sauce made from Jäger, and then you've got Schwarzweiß Kirschtorte, which is Black Forest Gatto.
Wow, it sounds so much more romantic in German.
It does really. I was going to say kind of sexy. But
sexy, yeah. And what about you, Simon? What's your average day like?
Pretty much reiterating what Gareth said. Also depends on the client, what sort of game you're working on. But yeah, it can be 1 minute working on spreadsheets, the next minute sort of dealing with reviews, sort of talking to journalists, talking to different media. It can be setting up press events, so going around London, looking at different venues. It can be preparing for sort of press events abroad for some of our clients. Gamescom, which obviously just finished recently, we had 4 clients out there, although we only had to represent one of them sort of out there in person. So again, it's just managing all the appointments for all our sort of clients, and going out there and then managing it on a day-to-day basis while you're there during the show, just making sure everyone turns up, knows where they've got to go, making sure appointments run on time. So it really does, it varies quite a lot, which is really one of the joys of the job, I suppose, is that there is a lot of variety. And you never really know what you're going to be doing from one week to the next.
So appointments, spreadsheets, data. It sounds like you've got to be pretty organised. You'll be one of the most organised people.
You've seen my desk. You probably have seen my desk.
I haven't actually seen your desk. No.
It's
we should mention we're here in Gareth's office in Central London.
My desk is basically organised chaos. I know specifically what's in what piles, but the piles. It used to be that when print ruled the world, that you would have magazines piled up on your desk. These days, people do that for us. We still do it a little bit, but most of my desk is full of things like purchase orders for things, or emails printed off because I need to stay on top of this, or a to-do list, and then just a pile of stuff that I don't want to look at for at least 3 months.
And so when you say people do that for you now, because obviously that was a big part of your job, just providing your clients with cuttings. Someone does that for you
even in-house, somebody would normally do that. So you have basically it's called clippings or a clipping service. So years ago, we would get all the magazines in. We would then cut the pages and scan them, send to the client, say this has appeared in today's paper or magazine, whatnot. With the advent of online, that made our job infinitely more easier because print kind of diluted a little bit to the best of the best rather than let's have 19 magazines, it's now like 8.
Right.
So that's in the specialist arena anyway. So there are now agencies that actually spend their time reading through everything, cutting, clipping and sending it to you. It's much more cost effective for them to do it than sometimes for us. We do it for some clients, but thankfully that's cut an awful lot of the kind of time-consuming aspect of PR out.
And there's Google Alerts as well now, I suppose.
Oh yeah, that's the world's best thing ever.
World's best thing ever. Makes your life a lot easier. So your clients have, Gareth, have UK offices, thinking Namco, Warner Brothers, they're all based in London mostly. Simon, yours are quite international, aren't they? I know you work with Paradox based in Sweden.
Yeah.
So you're essentially there on the UK representation.
That's right, certainly for Paradox. I mean, we've been working for them for about 7 years now. Essentially, we've become the UK office for them as an organisation. I think we're probably a little bit different from Premier in as much as a lot of the campaigns that we do are European campaigns. So we do the PR in the UK and normally most of mainland Europe, so Scandinavia, Germany, France, etc. At the moment, all our clients are based abroad. We don't have any UK-based clients. But that's just the way it's happened at the moment. Mm-hmm. So just kind of following on from what Gareth is saying, in some ways, with the sort of decline of print and the sort of burgeoning online media, it's actually made our job harder in terms of keeping track of everything, because we're dealing with media all over the world. You're dealing with so many sites. I mean, my list of contacts in Outlook alone, just media, is pretty close to 2,000 people. That, and it's a lot of people and it's a lot of sites to keep track of. And also there's new sites popping up all the time, and you have to kind of make a judgment call. Are we going to support these people? Are we not going to support these people? And as long as they show a sort of a good level of professionalism in terms of the style of their writing, and they're posting things on a regular basis, and they're usually conscientious in terms of if we do give them code, then they'll turn it around pretty quickly, then we'll support most people, because you never know when they're going to be tomorrow.
That's a good tip, actually. I mean, I was going to ask it later into the show, but it's brought up. You must get so many emails from people asking for, free games or a trip to a preview event or whatever. I'm always astonished with the rapid response.
Get that from you.
Used to get that from me, yeah. Still get that from me. But it's you guys seem to turn that stuff around. I mean, there's a tip there for people that have got blogs or starting their own sites, basically, to just make sure they're sending you guys cuttings or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it differs from sort of PR person to PR person, or from company to company. Certainly, my personal philosophy is I know there are a lot of PR people that will just sort of look after the big boys, the Eurogamers, the IGNs, the AimSpots, etc., and that they'll kind of ignore to a certain extent the smaller guys. I will always try and treat everyone equally where I possibly can, because God, where do you start? Where did a lot of these journalists start that were on
Eurogamer was a small thing once.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So you never know where these guys are going to be tomorrow. And it's kind of like, if you can see someone is a talented writer and is a good writer and is very knowledgeable about their subject matter and taking it seriously, then why not support them? If they've got a genuine passion for the games that you're working on and they're professional, then why not support them? Because they will remember that tomorrow.
Right.
I think one of the reasons why I've been around as long as I have is, and why hopefully I've got the respect of most of the media, is because they will remember when they first came onto the scene that I always supported them.
Sure.
So when they end up, the editor of a big site or a big magazine, I've built that relationship with them. I've got to know them. They've got to know me, and at the end of the day, it benefits me as a PR person. Sure. I kind of think that PR people that sort of ignore journalists are being very short-sighted, because they will remember that further down the road when you need something from them.
Sure.
If they're working, on a bigger site. And as a PR person, maybe you might be working on the big AAAs today, you might not be working on the big AAAs tomorrow.
Right.
And you're going to need them probably more than they're going to need you.
Sure.
So it's just, I think a big part of PR is the end of the day, you should look at what PR stands for, public relations.
Right, I was just about to say it is relations, isn't it?
So I can't. Again, it's a pet peeve of mine I hear it a lot, and I've heard it throughout my career where they can't get hold of PR people.
Right.
That's your job as a PR person.
Is to be available.
And whenever possible. If you're there, pick up your phone, respond to your emails. That's your job.
Right.
So the best bit of advice there is following on from that as well is I'm pointing like you can all see. Following on from that is that if you're a burgeoning writer and you think this is what you want to do, I would say in the last 2 years the amount of phone calls I get has dropped drastically. Now I'm a busy guy. I won't say that I'm the busiest guy in the world, but I'm quite busy a lot of the time. But if someone takes the time to call me, even if I say, can I give you 5 minutes and I'll call you back?
Yeah.
Even it's that initial kind of let's have a chat.
Sure.
That's always a great thing because it gets me to know your voice, you as a person, and then you can then build that relationship.
Right.
I'll always, answer emails. I will not ignore an email. I'll always answer it. But yeah, try and call people.
I've noticed that actually, Gareth. You are one of the guys that calls a lot. Use the phone more than most
rubbish
people.
A lot though. I
have to say actually, I don't use the phone as much as I used to.
Right.
Because when you're dealing with multiple clients, multiple games, multiple journalists in multiple countries.
It's busy, isn't it?
The easiest way to keep track of things for me, where I know where I am with any one game or any one journalist or any one magazine, whatever it might be, is through email.
Right.
Is that I have that email chain as a record of where I am. In the old days, I did used to use the phone a lot more when it was just dealing with a handful of magazines and it just used to be dealing with the UK press. But now I just find the job is so big, I can't. I would be like half an hour later. What did I say to that person? Did I say I was going to call them? Did they say they want to call me? Did I say I was going to give them something? Oh God, what was it? So I probably use the phone less than I used to, but just so it makes my life easier to keep track of where I am with everything.
Right. I did a podcast with community specialists, social media and community guys. So I think I might be misattributing this here, but Holly Bennett said that public relations is now more limited to press relations, with community managers doing the job of talking to the hardcore community guys. Would you agree with that comment?
I'd agree and disagree with that. I love Holly, she's wonderful. I disagree with that, and the reason for that is how games have moved. They're not mainstream, some of them are, but they're moving that way. One person or two people, however many you've got in a team, cannot handle everything. I think community has grown, especially I started in 2003. Community's become a huge thing since then. There are people that have social media and community teams that literally don't know what they should be doing with them, but they have them because they should have them.
Right.
But I think from our point of view, I don't just deal with games websites, and I'm sure Simon's exactly the same. We deal with everybody, so I could be talking to the papers, television, I could be talking to somebody that I've never met before, any time of the day or night. So I would say my breakdown of who I speak to is probably about 50% specialist games press, and the rest is everybody else. That means that we can't actually deal with the community as much as we used to. So I can see where that's moved across and where Holly's got that idea from, and she's, I don't disagree with her, but to an extent, we still have some of that.
Right. Okay. Do you see much of a change? I mean, you've both been in this. Did you say 7 years, Gareth, in PR?
Yes,
and
7 years.
And then a few years as a journalist before that?
Yes.
And you was it 11? Was it
16?
16
years.
What's changed aside from the media landscape? Has anything changed drastically? I mean, you launched the Dreamcast. I mean, that must have been quite different to it. Yeah, quite different to. I mean, I know you're not working on the launch of the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4, but it must have changed quite a lot now. I mean, Sega obviously didn't have an easy time of it launching the Dreamcast, but Microsoft seems in a similar position now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest change is just the explosion of online media and the explosion of social media. Whereas now everybody's a critic.
Right.
And it's a lot back in the day. When I launched the Dreamcast, I'm trying to think, the internet did not exist. There was no games websites as far as I can remember. No, I'm pretty convinced there wasn't.
Stayed the web around then?
But don't forget
that was one of the first big sites.
Dreamcast was, and also the Dreamcast was the first console that had an online component in terms of online multiplayer, and that was just like, wow, that is just what the
It's like
hell?
a 28k modem.
Exactly. What the hell is that? So it was a lot easier to control a message because all you had to deal with was print. So that if you did receive some negative press for whatever reason, and the Dreamcast, did, although not before it launched, I think it all came really after it launched. So it's a lot easier to control a message. If you are getting negative feedback, then it gives you time to kind of sort of assess, okay, what have we done wrong? What's our reaction to it going to be? And then you kind of deal with it in a very sort of measured, controlled way. Now, as Microsoft found out, is instant.
Right.
I mean, everyone watched their sort of launch, online.
Yeah.
It was within seconds. Twitter just went bam. So before
makes a decision on it immediately.
Yeah. So before they'd even finished the press conference, people had already said this is a disaster. So it's kind of all of a sudden you're in complete sort of instant panic mode. Maybe not on the outside, but on the inside you're thinking we've got to deal with this immediately, and it's a lot harder to control now. It's a lot harder to control. And from that point of view, I think the job is a lot harder.
Right.
It's a lot harder because
harder than it used to be.
Everyone's got an opinion.
Do you agree with that, Gareth?
I do.
It's gotten harder.
It's the same principle with Metacritic. You have the critic scores and then you have user scores, and before a game's out, user scores have either got it 10 out of 10 or 0 out of 10. It's difficult, and it's not just for PR. It's for developers and publishers and the different aspects that they have. Developers are there going, God, people really don't like our game. But what they have to realise is that, in the same way with Twitter, is that it's a tiny proportion. When you show a game at Gamescom, you'll have 10,000 members of the press possibly seeing it. In reality, you'll probably have about 1,500, and that's a tiny cross spectrum of press that will see your game.
Right.
And their opinion is reflected by the consumer because they read what the press say, which is basically our job to make it be as good as possible. It's kind of the same with Twitter because the hardcore went TV, oh my God, what am I going to do? And you think, crikey, there's like 4 million mentions of Xbox One being rubbish. But then you realise that Twitter has X million members, most of them don't care.
Sure.
But from our point of view, our job is to control and manage the message of the people that do care and try and get other people to care. So it's always a balancing act. As Simon was saying, messaging is now. So what we refer to as messaging is basically what do we want people to think about our game? How do we want it to be perceived? How do we communicate what the game is about? And then in return, people will talk to their friends about it. Messaging has become something that was, you could do over 3 months. You could figure out what you were going to say. Now, one person goes bang, and everybody picks up on it. Somebody writes a story about it. We immediately have to go, right, how do we respond? Which goes back to what Simon was saying. So it's, even in the 7 years that I've been doing it, the internet's exploded hugely. Everybody has their own blog, and one person's blog comment can cause a huge problem.
Right.
And it's not necessarily a problem, but it's a problem for us because we have to go, how do we respond? Because in essence, we are the official spokespeople of the company.
Right.
And it can create problems between you and your client because of what somebody's written on a blog. And, that's half the job. It's in terms of, it's managing a message for whatever game you're working on, but also managing a client's expectations, because sometimes what their perception of what their game is and what you think the reality is are two completely different things. And I think one of the advantages of being a gamer that does PR is that you kind of have that knowledge that you can draw on in terms of comparisons and what your sort of perceptions of a game that you're working on is as well, which I think is a really fundamental point of the job and a very important part of the job. And I always think the best PRs are the ones that are gamers themselves, because managing a client's expectations before the press has seen it is sometimes it can be crucial.
Right.
Absolutely crucial, because they might go, oh, we've got this great game, it's a 9 out of 10.
Right.
And you go, okay. Then you look at it and you think, actually, it's more of a 7 out of 10.
Right.
But as long as you can kind of go back to them and explain your reasoning and say, look, this is what I think, and I think this is what the press is going to think, and as long as they understand your reasoning, so that you avoid any surprises later on.
Right, and because they can implement changes, or because it affects their stock price, or what's the...
Because if they think it's 9 out of 10, and if you don't really know anything about games, and you kind of go, okay, you go along with that,
Yeah.
and then you talk to the press, and then it reviews, and it comes back 7 out of 10, they're going to say, why has it got a 7 out of 10? What, everything, we know this is a 9 out of 10 game. You're the one that's going to take the hit for it.
Right, okay.
So sometimes, you have to kind of go back to them, and better to do it before anyone else has seen it outside the company.
Yeah.
Than wait until the game is
It's
out.
out, right? Okay. This is less of a question, more just of an anecdote, or something that happened to me once. Like you say, a lot of PRs in the industry, yourselves included, are gamers. You know a good game, presumably, when you see one, and a bad game when you see one. I had a conversation a couple of years ago, unnamed publisher, but I spoke to someone to say that the word sort of on the journalistic grapevine was that X game wasn't going to be very good, and the PR seemed to be very well aware of that. And then when the game came out, and the website I was working for at the time rubbished it caused problems still. So it's still, that still happens. It must be an incredibly difficult process. Gareth, feeding back to when a game's good or bad, but you're having to be honest with your client.
9 times out of 10, there are occasions when we'll go, it's absolutely, you're not going to get lower than 8 for this game. If I remember correctly, the first Batman game,
sure,
Square knew it had a great game.
Right.
We knew they had a great game, but the day that the embargo lifted, a week before release, the day before my wedding day, could have completely ruined it. It was a real worry. 5 o'clock, I was about to leave for an early Friday finish. I waited till the reviews came out. Instead of everybody else went, I waited till the reviews. I was nervous.
The day before your wedding.
Yeah, and I was like, "Come on, let's do this." I was hoping for. I'll be honest. I was hoping for 9s across the board.
Yeah.
And I was super happy because I knew it was a good game. They did, and it got 9s across the board.
Right.
Apart from Total Video Games. Don't forget anything.
Which gave it? Who gave
they gave it an 8.
An 8.
And they
no longer exist.
Yeah, they don't exist. The guy that gave it an 8 rang me up later and said I was wrong. I've played it again. It was a 9.
Right.
But they don't exist anymore, so they don't have to defend that in any
way.
Right.
Still bearing a grudge.
Yeah,
still.
Square might ring me up tomorrow and say, get it to a 9. But it's such a strange world, and I think there's going back to a point that Simon made. You were saying that obviously the more that we know about games, the better it is. That's kind of a good indicator of different kinds of agencies as well. So Simon is very specialist knowledge, but you've worked at loads of different companies on mainstream and specialist in terms of what you do. We're an agency that does mainstream and specialist, but you find that there are some companies that will employ mainstream agencies, and those people don't know much about games.
Right,
yeah,
they're there to put the stories in the papers.
Right.
Absolutely.
They're there to do the photo shoots. They're not the people they go to ask if the game is good.
Right.
Whereas a specialist agency that deals with just specialist or specialist and mainstream with ex-journalists involved, they will always get asked their opinion.
Right.
Because it matters a little bit more.
Sure.
As far as I'm aware, anyway.
We haven't really touched on your clients, Simon, but your agency here, Premier, is a huge agency. It's working with Hollywood talent and TV and music as well.
Yeah,
all of the different entertainment.
We have. I've walked into a boardroom with Keira Knightley in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was she doing?
She was waiting for a meeting.
Right.
I received a look and left. The best person that we looked after was Matt Smith.
Right.
Obviously the current Doctor, but not for much longer.
See, I don't think quotations might work on radio.
Yeah, sorry,
podcasts.
Quotations.
Air
The current
quotation
Doctor. And obviously that meant that we got to meet Karen Gillan.
Yeah.
Who I think is probably on my list. Anybody that's married, you've got a list.
A
right?
list of favourite actresses.
I love their work. And we do home entertainment, so we do DVDs. We also do the premieres in Leicester Square and everything. But I don't get involved in that. I just love games.
Right.
I'd love to get involved in that, but they probably shouldn't let me near all these famous people.
Near the
because I've
famous
got a list. Obviously.
You have a list. You tell them you're on my list. Here's the list.
Just walk up and say you're on my list. Let's see what happens.
So do you think I work with some PR agencies and even people internally at various publishers who aren't into video games? They're quite upfront about it, and from my side, they're great PR professionals, and they deliver code on time, and they'll get me assets when I need them. But do you guys think it's important in the games industry, where there are so many people presumably would kill for a job being a games PR, that you are into your video games?
Most PR people who work in-house at publishers are ex-journalists,
right?
And they're there for a reason,
right?
There are a few people that I know of that aren't ex-journalists or aren't massively fond on games that work internally, but that's probably because of the type of company they are. There's a big difference between a games publisher and a multinational. So, as an example, a company like Warner Brothers, they have an ex-journalist there. Sorry, he's not an ex-journalist. He's worked at different agencies before he went there.
Right.
But he's a great person to be there.
Right.
And he works across games and films and all that kind of thing. Whereas if you have somebody in-house who just works on a game side, I think that might be a disadvantage, but that's just my point.
Right.
If they're not into games, I feel that, like you say, there are hundreds of people that want jobs in this industry. There are about 100,000 people employed by the UK games industry. In PR, there's about 120. And so we're quite lucky to be in that group, I think.
What's it's kind of catching off guard here, but can you think of your favourite or most memorable campaign or idea that you've worked on that, if you were to leave tomorrow, you'd be most proud of? Is there anyone
I know instantly if I can jump in?
Yeah, of course.
This is going to be a little bit
Is
controversial.
it the Borderlands?
No, it's not that.
There was a number of Borderlands stunts that I liked, but
it was actually for Batman Arkham City. The day that Colonel Gaddafi died,
right.
I got a 6 out of 5 from Yahoo Games.
Right.
The only 6 out of 5, or more than 100%, in the last 10 years, as far as I know, and it had more space on the Yahoo homepage than Colonel Gaddafi dying.
Jeez.
It's on the desktop of my laptop,
right.
that picture. So that's a moment.
That's your
fist in the air.
You've got plenty of campaigns. I mean, I did call it a stunt then. I don't know if that's a dirty word in the industry. I always feel
stunt
is okay.
All the time, yeah.
The Borderlands bus that took journalists to Gamescom, and then the Borderlands bungee jumping.
Yeah, we couldn't do either of those now.
Couldn't do either of those now.
Couldn't do either of those now.
What's just because of journalists?
Just because journalists don't like getting free stuff.
You could do.
Anyway.
Oh god.
You could do. Oh, well, we should talk about this, but you could do the bungee jump again. That was with the
the
public,
bungee
wasn't
jump.
it?
That was public. Too many people turned up. It was that popular. It was brilliant.
It was so. It was a bungee jump in East London in Shoreditch. You turn up if you do a bungee jump. You
win
get a copy of the game.
First two people didn't jump. They waited 2 days and didn't jump.
Right. They waited 2 days and
you go up in the lift and you get up 150 feet and you just brick it.
Yeah.
If I'd gone up in the lift, I was going to do it, but I thought I'll stay at home instead.
Right.
If I'd gone up in the lift, I would have bricked it. I wouldn't have done it. And I'd like to think I would do it, but having seen the pictures and some of the video, no, not a chance.
So they bricked it. Did they get a copy of the game?
They still got a copy.
They still got a copy of the game. That's a nice gesture. But everything sort of went wrong after that. It was raining and loads of people queued up.
Raining wasn't the issue. What you have to consider that we think about when we do all these things isn't just what's going to do brilliant, what's going to make people love the game, what's going to get coverage. We also have to think about things like health and safety.
Right.
And we have to think about insurance, all that kind of stuff. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes of an event that most people, even the journalists, don't even realise. So the moment the wind started coming up, we had to think, right, okay, is the lift going to be stable? Right. So we had to stop. We then got some more people on, and then it just went too fast, and we had to stop.
Right.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and so it was those are some of the campaigns that I remember from your side. What about you, Simon? Have you anything that you can't particularly proud of?
I think the one that really springs to mind was when I was at Atari when we did Enter the Matrix, which was great because the Wachowski brothers, well, only one of them's a brother now, but the Wachowski brothers were heavily involved in the production of the game because it was they're big gamers themselves, and they had this whole sort of big. Well, I suppose it was the forerunner of transmedia. Transmedia is a real big buzzword now, but certainly they were one of the first guys that I can remember that really sort of embraced it. And it was around the launch of Matrix Reloaded, the second Matrix game. So they did the game, which we signed up, Enter the Matrix, and the story followed two characters from the game, from the film called Niobe and Ghosts. Niobe was played by Jada Pinkett Smith, And basically the plot of the film sort of intertwined with Matrix Reloaded, and they used a lot of scenes from the movie. They filmed scenes especially for the game, using a lot of the characters in the same sets that they used for the film. And they also did this thing called the Animatrix, which it was like a segment of short animated films by some of the best sort of animators in the world. So one of those animated shorts led into Enter the Matrix. It was really interesting. They did a comic and everything. So we were very lucky because the Wachowskis were really keen on the game launching the same day as the film, for us to get involved with Warner Brothers sort of press junkets. So all the stuff that Warner Brothers were doing around Matrix Reloaded, we kind of got involved for Enter the Matrix. So it was great. It gave us a lot of exposure, with the game. It's a lot of mainstream media at the time, and I'll always remember doing the press junket. So I was the one that was like manning the demo pod for the game in the green room at Claridge's, which was the press junket for all the film media, for all the TV and film media. So they just hired this entire one floor of Claridge's out, and they had all the producers and directors and Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne all set up in different rooms, and I was in the green room, the holding area, with my demo of Enter the Matrix. Again, I'm using sort of hand gestures.
Definitely no one but yes, yeah.
And I can't remember her name. She was like the head entertainment correspondent for BBC. I can't remember her name. So anyway, I'd done TV interviews before, but not for News at 10. So she comes up to me and she says, what's the game about? And I gave her the spiel, that it coincides with the film and uses all the characters. And so she was really interested. So she said, you want to do an interview, like on camera for the news? So I was like, yeah, okay, why not? So I was like, okay. So I did the interview. So then I watched it back. It was a couple of days later to coincide with the launch of the film, and I watched this piece. It was a really big piece on the Matrix, and the world of the Matrix. So my one crowning moment when it came to the end was they did 3 interviews during this piece. It was a big piece. It was like a 3-4 minute piece. It was Keanu Reeves. It was Joel Silver, who's the producer?
Yeah, the producer, yeah.
And me.
Wow.
Basically.
That's
and I was last.
You were last.
They saved the best to last.
Did you high five everybody the following day?
I was like, I gave them copies of the video. Did you watch News last night?
Yeah.
There you go.
On DVD.
Yeah.
Is Keanu Reeves as nice as everyone? He's about the nicest man in Hollywood.
I didn't get a chance to meet him. He's very, very shy.
Right.
Jada Pinkett Smith, he's gorgeous.
Right.
She's about 5'0", but she's lovely.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
That was one of the first events I went to. Actually, was Enter the Matrix. There was a cinema event in Leicester Square, and I came down I was at Sheffield University at the time, and I came down to cover it for Virgin Gaming, for Virgin at the time.
Yeah.
Were you at that one?
We did a couple.
Yeah.
We did a couple in Leicester.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I was talking to the girls from Bits. Do you remember Bits?
Oh yeah.
Emily Booth.
Emily Booth.
Emily Newton-Dunn.
They were once on my list.
Emily Booth quite possibly still might be on my list.
Yeah, I wonder what they're doing now.
She does some stuff for the Horror Channel.
Does she?
Emily
Of
Booth.
course, yes, of course she does. Yeah. On the other side, on the flip side, what about the sort of any particular crises or problems or issues that you've had to deal with?
I've certainly had enough of those, but they involved specific journalists and specific websites. So
it's about me, isn't it?
One was an Unreal related one. When I was at Infogrames, and we used to have the Unreal games, and I don't know whether Gareth, whether you've ever
Are you talking about the press trip to Spain?
No, I'm not talking about the press trip to Spain.
Because I was on that. And that was
No. I don't know whether you've ever worked with Epic Games. How can I be political? I get on well. I get on well with certain members of Epic, but they're very passionate, shall we say?
Right.
Yeah. Unreal, and obviously now they've got Gears of War, but Unreal's their baby.
Right.
And obviously because we just had a deal with them as a developer, as a third party, they were pretty much calling the shots. Suffice it to say, it was somebody that I spoke to in confidence. I won't name the journalist. He's still a very, very well-known journalist who's an editor. I spoke to an editor in confidence about an upcoming title that Epic were developing, which we were releasing. This was about 2 days before Christmas. and I made sure this is in confidence, absolutely off the record. No sooner had I sort of put the phone down. Well, I didn't know. I was just about to wrap up for Christmas. I was literally shut down my PC. I was about to walk out the door, and then the internal sort of PR manager rang my phone and he said, "Have you seen such and such a site?"
Right.
And I was like, "No." And he said, "Epic and go spastic."
Yeah.
And basically he had just verbatim done a news story about what I'd told him in confidence.
Named you, or...?
No, he didn't name me, but it was obvious where it came from, because I was like the PR manager working on this title. And cut a long story short, I mean, I managed to phone him, chewed his head off. His sort of response was, "I have a duty to my readers, and it's a big news story. I had to run with it."
But you said in confidence.
Yeah, and
in confidence off the record is in confidence and off the record.
So we blackballed them for a while. They came back grovelling, begging, but he had a reputation for doing this.
Right.
I think he's calmed down a bit now, but that was not pleasant. While I'm just about to walk out the door for Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got potentially Epic Games going to go
ruining your
absolutely
Christmas. Yeah.
So yeah.
What about you, Gareth?
There has only been let me count. One. I'm trying not to have dead air here. There's only a couple of issues that I've ever had. One of them I can't mention, but I'll tell you afterwards.
Right.
Yeah, secrets.
Okay.
To be honest, I can't really name either of the incidents, but suffice it to say, it's usually. Oh, here's one I can do. I can't tell you the company or anything.
Right. Okay.
Somebody asked for some information on a client, and this was about 5 years ago.
Right.
And in all of our email signatures, it says any information included in this email is treated as in confidence, and it's strictly.
That's pretty standard, isn't it? So on the
so it's basically a case of we gave them the information in confidence, and they were told in the email it was in confidence, and they put the entire email up as a news story and posted the email. And now this wasn't me that had emailed, but that's the person that did that is not working in the industry anymore.
Right. Okay.
Because that's another argument: is what is a games journalist versus what is a journalist. Games journalists don't get the same training as journalists. That's starting to change now,
right?
And the quality of writing is hugely improved, where it's harder to see the stars these days than it was 5 years ago. That's always difficult when that happens, because obviously if you've got a client and they're a big international one or a smaller one, whatever, they're all just as annoyed.
Of course, yeah.
And of course, all we do is go, well, we've sent an email and it says in confidence and it says please don't say anything, and we're backing ourselves up, but at the same time we're speaking to the journalists and going, do you not read your emails? Because that's what journalists say to us a lot of the time. Do you read your emails? But we just have to go, I'm really sorry. I can name the website. It was Kotaku that did the story.
Right.
Not me, but somebody else just went, can you just take it off? Because it says in confidence, Not that we're going to, but you could be sued for that if it was anybody else. And they took it down eventually.
Sure.
Eventually, the damage has been done then, hasn't it?
Which is unfortunate, and that's what the internet has changed us. Because if it was a magazine, we'd hear about it, but we know that only 80,000 people would hear about it. It wouldn't go on the internet. Whereas now, anything up to 100 million people hear about it.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you say, there are not many in every other area of the media. There's it's so legally dominated that litigation is just a part of the process. But in games media, it doesn't really happen. I think
we just like to be laid back and do jobs, and have relationships and all get what we need.
Right.
Yeah, there's an element of trust. It's like at the end of the day, we're two sides of the same coin. Journalists, need us, we need journalists, and it should be a very symbiotic relationship, and then you do get the odd one that just spoils it.
Right.
Yeah. And, we don't need to be friends. Like me and you are not friends, are we?
No, there's a definite hatred.
But it is a level of trust, and it's I think it's just working on the basis that you're not an idiot.
Sure, I think it's disappointing from a journalist side to sort of hear about the the in-confidence thing. Any up and coming journalists that are listening to this, the in-confidence thing is
I'm sure we screwed up as well. By the way, it's not all journalists' fault.
Oh yeah.
Well, you touched upon a current issue. A few questions ago about sort of journalist impropriety and
Here we go.
I have to ask the question because I want to get your opinions on it. So there was a suggestion about a year ago around the Games Media Awards that journalists were all feeding from the trough and that PRs were happy to give loads of freebies and send them our way, and I don't think we've ever discussed it on the show. What's your opinion of all this? Do you think that journalists are right to do this, or are they taking it too seriously?
I can sum it up pretty concisely. Complete bollocks.
I think that's about right.
I think it's complete bollocks.
Yeah, it's.
We don't even need to go into detail. It's just bollocks.
Right.
It really is.
I mean, what happens in the US, and this all stemmed from Dorito Gate, as it's now known as.
Well, I think originally it was. I think people are probably familiar with the whole story, but it originally stemmed from people defiance hashtags at the Games Media Awards and winning PlayStation 3s, and then I think shortly afterwards, the Jeff Keighley Doritos, where he was pictured.
But you know that nobody had a problem having their picture taken with the guy from the game that was being promoted at the beginning. As you walked in the venue.
Was that Far Cry? Was it?
I don't know what game it was. I possibly couldn't comment ever. Nobody had a problem having their picture taken with him all night.
Right.
Being posted on Facebook, did they?
Right. So you think it's rubbish? And do you think that it's going to kind of? From my perspective, the US take this very, very seriously. They have for a while, where US sites like Kotaku and Joystick, print that they've received the game for free and that they've, played X amount.
But where else are they going to get the game from? They're not going to wait till release day and buy it, are they?
So you think this is here to? Do you think this is here to stay now? Then this whole.
I find it quite sad, actually, because we've existed, and I've been in the industry, 16, 17 years, and I think we're very good as an industry in terms of the relationship between media and PRs, of self-regulating ourselves. Trust me, it used to be a hell of a lot worse.
Right.
When I first got in the industry, it was pretty bad.
Right. TVs and stuff, wasn't there?
In terms of buying review scores and sort of bribes, and that did used to go on.
Right.
But because we were still very small as an industry, it was completely went underneath the radar in terms of consumers and whatnot. But we cleaned it up internally. We became more professional as an industry. Publishers became more professional. The people that they employed became more professional. As PR people, we became more professional. Journalists became more professional. So I think this is a non-story,
right,
personally, because anyone that I deal with on a journalist side, they always have a lot of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
I would never dream of. It's an insult. If I went to a journalist and insinuated was there a possibility of buying a review score or influencing a review score, how is that not going to come across as completely insulting to them?
Right.
I think it's complete rubbish, and unfortunately there are a few sites that have now jumped on this. Again, I won't name them, who have got this now holier than thou attitude, and in terms of, well, unless we pay for, we're only going to go on press trips if we can pay for our own hotel rooms, if we can pay for our own sort of travel, so that there's absolutely, we're crystal clear that there's no sort of insinuation of any monkey business. And that's all well and good for those guys, but there are plenty of sites and plenty of journalists that can't afford to do that. The only way that they can come on press trips and cover games for their readers is if all their travel is taken care of in their hotels. That's not going to influence what they write about, and I've done many press trips, and I would never dream of sort of saying to them, oh, well, because we're paying for your travel and your accommodation, we're buying you dinner and drinks, that this has to be positive coverage.
Yeah. We only ask for guaranteed coverage. We don't ask for guaranteed great coverage.
Exactly.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, and there are some sites and some journalists that they really piss me off, to be honest with you.
Right. Could they be European-based gaming websites?
Yes.
So, all right. Well, I think we've covered that one. It was, I was more honest than I was expecting.
I was hoping really for a longer debate.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, what
I'm joking.
What else do you think there's any other way of tackling it? I mean, I think if, like you said, websites want to pay for their own trips and want to cover their own expenses, then they are entitled to do that.
Yeah, they are absolutely. They're entitled to do it.
But they probably won't. They'll just not go on the trip.
Right.
But the annoying.
Isn't that good for smaller up and coming sites that they're going to then.
It is,
be there.
but from the other side of it, we want the coverage on the bigger sites.
Right.
We do want smaller sites coverage as well. But if we've got a limited budget to do certain things, then we need to hit the big hitters. If they're not on a press chip, I might have to explain why they're not on a press chip. If they're a target that I identify that I would like to see the game at this stage of the campaign,
right,
and they're not there, I have to justify that. And if it's because they won't come out because they have to pay for their own flights and hotel, and they're not going to, then the question I get is, well, why don't we sort it out for them?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a difficult one, but at the end of the day, the easiest way to sort it is, I think it doesn't need regulation. As Simon said, the majority of press are awesome, integral people. Mm-hmm. It's the same for PR. I don't know a single person in PR that has tried to buy a score,
right,
or say, can you make it a 9? I think I've never done it. Ooh, mystery.
Can't be sure.
I've had, when I was a journalist, I had somebody ask me, and this was different. I scored a game 5 out of 5 in a niche specific magazine. I scored it a 9 out of 10 in a specialist magazine. And the reason for that difference is the niche magazine, the game was entirely aimed at that audience.
Right.
Yeah.
For the average game player, it wasn't quite a 10.
Right.
And they were like, can you make it a 10? I was like, no, it's a 9.
Right.
And they would be insistent. I go, it's a 9. The magazine is going to print.
Yeah.
It's not changing. And journalists should have that kind of integrity now, and
right,
they do. And I appreciate that. Even if I had the same situation, I wouldn't have a problem with it being a 9 because it's a 9 out of 10. That's an amazing score.
Exactly.
Right.
What's the issue?
You're not going to buy it's not a 10, it's only a 9. Oh, I'm going to buy that.
It's
only a 9.
Is there not an argument to say, though, instead of doing for example, here, I know there's a recent trip to Rome for a certain game that's coming out with that in its title. What could it be? Is there not an argument to say, well, you can show that game off in your offices or in their offices, whether in Bath?
The difference is that trip that you're referring to, I would imagine, isn't actually aimed at specialist press. Right. They'll take specialist press, but it's more designed for people like, as a PR person, I would have to go, right, there's a press trip to Rome, what should I do? Right, let's take 2 of the travel editors, take them to Rome, they can do a thing on somewhere in Rome, but we'd want a credit for the game in there. We had this, and there's a little box about the game you're speaking of in question. At the same time, I would want to take a broadcast outlet there. People don't know this most of the time, but the BBC do not allow people to go on press trips paid for by any publishers. They have to pay for it themselves. So we couldn't take the BBC out. So we go, right, who can we take? And most of the other broadcasters use freelancers all the time. So they'll come out and they'll do their feature, and it'll go online, or it'll go, if we're really lucky, it'll be broadcast on some channel. But that's what those trips are designed for. The majority of the time, there's some trips where it's only specialist people, but the majority of them are designed to get wider coverage.
So in the backlash of all this stuff that was happening, do you feel that the PR industry has sort of unfairly had its name dragged through the mud, and
some of the journalists are involved? Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, just kind of going back a little bit to my point that I made earlier, what you said, Guy, about surely if sites want to pay for their own flights and travel, that they should be allowed to. Absolutely. The problem that I have, it's not that the problem is not that they do that. The problem is by them being very sort of, look at us, this is what we're doing, is they're insinuating that anyone that doesn't do that, can you trust what they're writing about? Right. That's the problem that I have with it. And what they did is they made a very public song and dance about it. So if you do it, have a little box maybe at the sort of end of every review, just like a standard, almost like a boilerplate. Yeah. We received this, or we paid for this ourselves, or this feature.
It'd be fine if they did that for the whole of the campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
Campaign,
so
we received this, and did this.
It was the problem. It was just the way that certain sites went about it. It was just almost like, look at us, and anyone that doesn't do that. Can you really trust what they're writing about? And that was the issue that I had with it. Absolutely no problem. If you want to pay for it, absolutely not a problem. But don't drag it into the same argument as whether it reflects on whether a journalist or a PR is corrupt or not.
And we're getting sort of nitpicking territory here, but there was an instance where one of the sites that's involved with these sort of policies has a policy about only reviewing games in the not in the company of PRs, and then there was a recent example involving Bioshock add-on where that was done, reviewed in the offices of the publisher.
See, that's not for any other reason than availability of code. For a Bioshock add-on, I didn't work on Bioshock Infinite or the original Bioshock. I worked on Bioshock 2. That was an ace game, just saying.
It was a great game.
It was a great game.
Everyone's going back to that game and saying
I never finished it. I should have finished it.
Yeah.
But with DLC, it's about availability. What you have to remember is that these are companies that are, most of them are traded companies now on stock exchanges. They simply cannot give pre-release code. Do you think that Paramount would give you a film 6 months before it's out to preview it?
Sure.
Of course they're not going to do it. It's their IP. They've got to protect that. So in the same way, games companies have to protect their IP.
Right.
And they do that by allowing people, they get a venue, make it comfortable, put the game in front of people. If it's a DLC pack, it's only going to be available to download anyway, unless they do a Game of the Year edition, which is becoming much more popular. But you can only do that with pre-release code, and it has to be protected.
Okay.
That's all
That's the reason behind that. That's
I'm
interesting.
I'm gonna have to be a bit controversial here.
Go for it.
I'm gonna have to disagree with Gareth.
All right then.
Because, and not, I'm not sort of being flashy.
leaving
We should
now.
actually, before we do that, should I just make it clear that sort of in the past, certain publishers will allow journalists to review their games if they come to their offices or if they go to a hotel room or whatever. That's a fairly common
been
practice.
done, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Sam.
And I was just saying, going back to Gareth's point about the movie industry doesn't do it. The movie industry does do it. I mean, I'm a member of BAFTA and I vote on the films as well as the games. I'll get films sort of sent through on DVD months before their commercial release in cinemas.
So they're not even in the cinema yet?
Not even in the cinema. They're all fingerprinted
Sure.
to individual user because they only get sent out to members of BAFTA. They're fingerprinted to you, so it ends up where it shouldn't. They can trace that copy back to you.
Right.
So it can be done. I don't think it's a case of they don't want to do it because it can't be done. It's control for me. It's they want someone sitting there with one of the developers, making sure that they're seeing what they're supposed to see. If they're getting stuck on a certain bit, no, this is what you do.
Sure.
Just to try and make the impressions of the game as controllable in a positive way as they possibly can. Once it's out of their hands, then it's. I always say it's doing a campaign for a game is like raising a child. I don't have any kids, by the way, so I don't know why I use that analogy. But you raise them from a newborn up to a toddler. You teach them right from wrong, good from bad. But then there comes to a point once they're going to leave home, and once they walk out that door, then it's kind of they're on their own. They're on their own,
yeah.
And that's the equivalent of when you send a game out for a review.
Right.
And I just think it's publishers trying to stop those kids leaving from home as long as they possibly can.
Right.
Can I add one thing to that?
Sure, of course.
And I do agree with you.
I'd agree with from a journalist perspective. I've always thought that it is more about kind of providing that positive, renting a nice hotel room, having comfy sofas, a nice TV, refreshments on hand. I've always thought that it's about giving as positive an environment as possible, the best chance. For
that entirely is true. The difference between games and film is that film isn't interactive. So, and I'm not trying to say anything about that except that. And you're right, it's control, because you can't control an interactive experience if you're not in the room. But going back to this hotel thing, the last one I did was about 3 years ago. The reason for doing that was because it was for long lead print press,
right?
Which is very difficult to deal with these days because everything's geared towards online. But I think you're right. We could do it. And I think we did try for a while. A few years ago, you would have fingerprinted copies of games. There are some companies that still do it, and I think they're great. They do a great job. Brilliant. There are a lot of companies that don't like their share price to go anywhere.
Sure.
So in a way, I'll still stick to that because if they get bad reviews, it reflects. Blimey, are we not going to hit our targets for this quarter?
Right.
And that's when people start going, Christ, what are we going to do with this game?
Yeah.
You know, the pre-orders are not where they should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's that side of it. But
I think it does depend on the publisher as well.
Yeah, it does. Some publishers are much more forward-thinking than others.
I've in previous jobs had to sign, and still actually have to sign very long documents. I remember there's a famous one for I think we can name it because it came out from Video Gamer, Tomb Raider, the most recent one. I can't remember the exact fee, but the editor of each site was personally responsible for hundreds of thousands of dollars if it was to make it out into the wild. And I personally had a hard time dealing with the internal legal department of that company to get that signed off, and we didn't get it for about a week. And
smaller publishers or just small sites aren't going to be able to read it and go, oh, hold on, let me consult my legal counsel. NDAs, about 5 years ago, used to be one paragraph. If I'm right, one paragraph, do not talk about this game till this date. An embargo is not for any reason than to get the coverage in one place at one time. And it's, the NDAs have now become, let's control every single thing.
Right.
And if somebody doesn't do it, then we'll get them. Nobody ever gets sued.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
It's
true. Yeah.
It'd be horrible press for them to do that.
It really would. And I can see why they do it, because most companies have more lawyers than they do other departments.
Yeah.
The average PR team is 2 to 3 people at a publisher.
And what are legal teams? Do you have any idea?
50 to 100.
Right.
They, half of the things that we do, we have to get approval from legal people first.
Yeah.
That's for a lot of clients, but that you can see why. They have a duty to their shareholders, as it were. Some people are brilliant. They don't have a legal team in sight, and the NDA is an email from me going, the embargo is this date. Is that all right? Cool, thanks.
That's it. I'm really keen. I'm really keen. You'll get this question a lot, but I'm really keen to just ask a couple more questions and then go on to a question that we had emailed in. So the first is, I'm sure you get this all the time, but how do you recommend people get into games PR? What's the number one thing they can be doing?
Well, obviously, I think Gareth's probably a great person. He's very representative in terms of, I think, how a lot of people get into PR. Games journalism.
So you were a journalist before, and you trained as was it video producer? Was it video producer? No.
So at at college, I did sound engineering and popular music,
right,
which led me to be able to use a mixing desk. I blagged my way into a job at a television production company who I won't name, but Guy knows who it is. And my interview was produce this live television show, and I'd never done it, but basically a vision mixing desk and an audio mixing desk is exactly the same. Got that job, thought, we've got nothing on Saturdays, let's make a TV show. So we did a TV show, it was rubbish, but nobody was getting paid, so we did it. And then a lot of it is about confidence. So you go from doing one job to the next, and I lucked into being a journalist. On the side, I was doing a video games website, and that taught me how to write news. I thought, didn't. Taught me how to write news.
Why do you look back at it now and you don't think it's any good?
Well, I had a meeting with Stu Taylor, who's now at Dead Good Media, his own company.
Dead Good, doesn't he?
He does own Dead Good. He is El Presidente of Dead Good. He took me for a pizza for my appraisal when I worked on 360 Gamer magazine, and he said, "Do you know what the inverse pyramid is?" And I went, "I've not got a clue. I'm so sorry." And at that point, I realised I knew nothing.
Right.
And he taught me what it was, and essentially, it's kind of the same thing in PR as well. It's what are people writing about? Why do they want to write about it? Oh, sorry, what are people reading about? Why they want to read about it, and then goes downhill from there. So I learned how to write news, and just be open to learning as much as possible. Start your own blog. Ask people if you can write. Unfortunately, ask people if you can write for free on big sites, because you're competing with some excellent writers these days. When I did it all for free. And that gave me that basis and confidence to be able to say, I can get in touch with these publishers, I talk to them all the time, let's start a TV show.
Right.
And I did that, and then I went back to online, and then did the magazine, and then one day I bumped into a guy called Simon Byron, which you both know, outside a cinema in Nottingham. I was a guest on One Life Left, and it was the only show that they've not ever put out. And he said to me today, "Good luck on this podcast." And I went, "Yeah, it'd be nice to invite you on your radio show."
He's recording it tonight.
He's recording it tonight, yeah. And it's the only one that never went out. And afterwards, I was outside doing things that you shouldn't do unless you look 21.
Right.
It's not illegal, but obviously you can't buy these things. But I'm not going to promote it on the airwaves. But hint. And Simon said, "Might have a job coming up."
Right.
And I went, "Doing what?" And he went, "PR." And oh, that sounds good. I'll be interested in that. Okay. And then I went for a quick interview, and he texted me and went, "We'd like to offer you the job. He's been my best friend ever since.
Oh,
I say he has. He left me once to go and join Premiere.
right.
So
I thought he hired you at Premiere. He hired you.
he did.
About
He hired me at both places.
Yeah.
But we had like a 9-month breakup.
Right.
And
It was hardest.
it was totally hard.
Yeah.
I almost didn't come to Premiere, but the draw of working with such an inspirational leader.
There we
I
go.
know I'll be listening.
If that doesn't get you a raise, I don't
Such an
know.
inspirational leader. Do you know if he wasn't married, I'd marry him.
Right. He's a great guy, a great manager, and sounds like
he's
to you
awesome
sexually
guy.
attractive.
He's you know, my mum loves him. You know, he
I
came
won't
from my
ask how
wedding.
that- Okay, all right.
He's no, he's a lovely guy.
He is a lovely guy.
But you know, he could learn a few things, I'm sure.
And so you were suggesting really start writing rather than going to a PR degree or a...
Yeah, you're very unlikely to get into video games PR by doing a PR degree.
There's about
Hardly anybody that does that.
Well, it depends on I think,
Well, if you want to go to a big agency like a Flashman Hillard, or you want to go to a Red or a JCPR,
Sure.
or these are the big agencies that deal with one specific publisher or one platform holder, and they have company accounts like ESSO and stuff like that. The real money is in financial PR. Ignore games, go into financial PR. It's 3 times the money.
Really? Is it because you're having to do real...
No, you
difficult...
just sit and write reactionary press releases that get one piece in a newspaper and you go, yeah!
Right.
For about 6 weeks.
And that's it, you dine out on that.
That's it. You know, that's your ticket for the rest of the quarter. But I think, getting back to the original question, sorry.
No, I was going to say there are about 3 or 4. And I know it's Capcom and Sony take on Bournemouth University PR course. They take them on for a year.
Yeah.
I think it's going more that way.
Right.
And Warner Brothers do that as well. They have an internship.
Yes. Yeah, I met the latest one, yeah.
I think it also depends on whether you want to work for an agency or whether you want to work in-house at a publisher. And even now there's an option now, a lot of developers are hiring their own in-house by. So they're 3 completely different jobs. So everyone seems to think, you know, games PR, it's just like this all-encompassing job, but it really is incredibly different. You know, whether you work for a developer in-house, whether you work for a publisher in-house, or whether you work for an agency, they're usually 3 completely different jobs.
Here's a question. Which is the best one?
Yeah, I was going to say, which...
I mean, I prefer, but again, this is sort of probably because I'm a gamer as well, but I prefer having more of a direct relationship with the developer. So I've worked for publishers. It's very difficult to do that because there's always usually chains of marketing people that are between you as a PR person and the developer. And
they have all the money.
They always go, don't talk to the developer. Just don't talk to the developer
because
you don't have that contact. That's not your job.
Right. Okay.
I'm lucky, obviously, because I started my own PR agency. Well, I don't actually think of myself as a PR agency. I always, because we are quite small, I always, for our clients, I always tell them just think of as an extension, you know, of yourselves, however you like to work, however you like to operate. And also, all our clients predominantly have been either small indie publishers or small, or, you know, developers themselves. So I like having that direct relationship. You can affect things a lot quicker. You get to sort of have a lot more input on games a lot earlier in a development cycle a lot of the time. So I think
they listen to you a bit more as well.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. They've hired you for a reason, so they do listen to you. So it's nice to have that input. So I think, sort of going back to the original question, I think it's more of a case of what type of PR do you want to do? Do you want to, you know, work on these big AAA franchises, you know, your Halos and your Assassin's Creed? Yeah, then you're probably, it's going more down the road of you will probably need a PR degree or have a lot of experience as a journalist. You're going to need really, really good writing skills. That is a fundamental core component of being a good PR. I see so many PRs that can't write a press release. It's quite shocking. So if you want to work on those big AAA titles, that's the way to go, but also be prepared that you're not going to have any control in terms of what you do. You're basically going to be an asset monkey to a large degree.
Right.
All those big sort of decisions in terms of campaign structure, that's all done way, way, way above your head.
Right.
If you kind of want
But eventually you'll make it.
You will.
Maybe to that level.
Yeah, you will, but...
You toe the line, you'll get there eventually, but there's
still,
so many people above these days, you know, it's a long chain to get up.
Right.
Yeah, you might, it's going to take you a long time to get there.
To get to what, marketing director or...
Even higher than that.
Yeah.
You know, you international brand managers above that.
Right.
You even have, as an example, you can have a client that where you speak to a PR manager, there's then a UK marketing director, there's then a European marketing director. In between there's brand for UK and US. and European. You've then got to go through sales. You've then got to go up to the US PR director, the global PR director, and above that, there's even input from the CEO.
Right.
So I've had an idea that the CEO of a specific company had to say yes or no, because it was kind of risky.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know about that one as well. But there's so much scale. I'll let you get back to your next question.
I mean, we could go on ad infinitum about this. I think, really bring it down. I think if you want to get into games PR, I think there are certain skill sets that you need to have. Be a people person. I think you've got to have social skills. I think they're really, really important. I think writing skills, very, very important. So, which is why you see a lot of PRs that come from journalistic backgrounds. And some form of PR qualification is not going to do you any harm at all.
And then the organisation and the...
Organisation, yeah, organisational skills. Although, Gareth, you seem to be disproving that from what you've told us earlier.
I do have a to-do list on Excel spreadsheet form that probably needs updating. I'm one of these people, I try and remember everything, so I have the chains on an email like you, but then I'm like, must do this, must do this, must do
that. Must keep you up at night, though, that's the only thing.
No, FIFA keeps me up at night.
FIFA keeps you up at night. I want to ask this question. I think we've got it covered off, but I want to ask it because Chris emailed in specifically. He says, hi, Guy and Guest, love the show. Here's my question for you and the guys. How do PR reps and companies feel about smaller non-professional gaming sites in regards to supporting them with interviews and reviews? And do they monitor the sites that they do choose to support on a regular basis? I ask as recently it seems that some sites and podcasts get a lot of support from PR companies, yet deliver minimal or no content in return. Surely something should be done to stop people just out for freebies getting supported over those sites that truly want to deliver content to its readership. Sounds like Chris has got maybe an axe to grind on this one.
I'll take that one if that's
Yeah,
right.
go for it, Gareth.
Everybody gets a first and second chance. So there may be the world's smallest blog and they email me and they go, I've got 500 hits this month. Is this enough for you to send me a game? As far as I'm concerned, if you've written about the game that I'm working on and you're interested in it, of course it's enough.
Right.
There are some companies that do not allow stuff to be sent to anybody under a certain number.
The threshold, yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, if people want to write about it, who am I to stop them doing that? I'll send them all the assets they need. If I've got enough allocation of games code, I will send it to them. If that review takes a month, I will continuously ask them about it, any idea when it's going to go up.
Right.
Because ideally you want it all around release.
Right.
And then you say to them at the end of it, next time, if you can do the review as soon as you get the code, that'd be awesome. Because more and more we find that we can't send it out until the review day or a couple of weeks before, because it's just not available. If they do it for a second time where it takes a month or 2 months, and I've had things that happen 3 months, then go, oh, I've done the review, blah, blah, blah. Thanks very much. It's unlikely I'll support you again.
Yeah, okay.
That's a personal thing. That's not a company thing. That's not a client thing. That's just how I do it. But it goes back to the original argument. Everybody starts somewhere.
Sure.
So why not help somebody get where they need to go? And eventually, they may end up being the editor of Eurogamer, and you get on amazingly well with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thanks very much. We've spent an hour and 7 minutes talking about PR, so I want to just talk about news and everything else. But thanks very much for answering those questions, guys. Where can we? Have you got a link to your website, Simon?
Mine's www.johnnyatom.com.
To find out more about the agency and yours as well?
Mine is a gameoftwohalves.net. It's a new football blog that I'm just about to launch.
Excellent.
But if you want to look at us, it's premiercoms.com.
All right, thanks, guys. Okay, competition time. This week I have 3 copies of Worms Clan Wars on PC to give away, thanks to the lovely guys over at Team 17. To win, simply answer this question, or I should say to be in with a chance of winning. Worms Clan Wars is developed in the UK by Team 17, but in which town are Team 17 based? If you know the answer, send it to podcast@guycocker.com and I'll draw the winners on next week's show. Last time, before Gamescom anyway, I had Payday 2 on PC to give away. To win, all you had to do was answer the question, what's the developer behind the game? The answer was Overkill Studio, and a lot of people knew that they were based in Stockholm in Sweden as well. Our winners are Eric Song, Justine Hodgkinson, Sally Brook and Patrick Jameson. Congratulations, guys. I will email you your codes as soon as possible. Okay, let's discuss this week's feedback. First up, the emails. This is from Darren Worrell. He says, "Hi guys, something you might want to consider for a news item in the podcast is the VGL Kickstarter. I'm not affiliated with them, just a fan of their work. They don't do shows in Europe very often, and if they get to $750,000, they'll put together a video. Keep up the good work." That's Video Games Live. Have you ever been to see those guys?
I haven't, but there are people
Tommy,
on my team that have.
Talarico and
and apparently it's awesome. But
it is awesome.
why do they want $750,000?
Seems like a lot, doesn't it?
Do they want to pay for the entire orchestra to come over?
I'm just going to have a look and see how they're doing actually, because I put this in a while back. They're up to 146,000.
Wow,
so some way to go. 10 days to go.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Sorry, Video Games Live, but the trend means that it's not going to happen.
This is if
you'd hired us,
true.
it may have happened.
That's very good. So that's Tommy Talarico. He's related to I think it's Steve Tyler from.
Now that is awesome.
I think it's Steve Tyler. It's a very famous rock.
Liv Tyler's on my list.
Really?
It's all going.
It all comes around. It all comes around.
Let's make Video Games Live happen. Come on.
Next email's from Shane Jones. He said, "I wanted to follow up a tweet with an email. A tweet that he sent me with an email, as there were a few points that didn't make it into the 140 character limit." He says, "I really enjoyed your Gamescom podcast. I didn't get a chance to follow everything online, so your podcast really gave me a way to catch up on all the news while driving to work. I was especially interested in the two interviews that you did with Harvey Eagle from Microsoft and Fergal Garrett from Sony. I thought that Fergal came across much more confident and sounded genuinely interested in his product compared to Harvey. He had a relaxed air of confidence about him and came across extremely well, and I think with someone like this leading the promotion of PlayStation 4, it will help sell the console to potential consumers. In comparison, I thought Harvey, although completely competent in the interview, came across as an interview by numbers, in air quotes, and if I had a pound for every time he said Xbox One, well, I'd have a lot of pounds. For me, he summed up Microsoft's approach to Xbox One's launch throughout the year, which is a little unsure. It's interesting because I'm very impartial, and although I've been very happy with an Xbox 360, I feel I'm being tempted in the direction of a PlayStation 4 when I suppose an Xbox One upgrade would make more sense. Ultimately, though, my decision will be made once the consoles arrive and the games are released. However, with everything Sony is doing right, I can see why PlayStation 4 is winning the pre-order race." And that's from Shane. Do you guys can you speak impartially about what you're looking for?
I can, because we pretty much just do PC and mobile stuff, but so I can speak purely as a consumer. But I just find it quite amazing that obviously Sony were in such an incredibly strong position with PS2, dominated the market, and then they just completely dropped the ball with PS3.
Do you think completely? I mean, they're doing well in Europe.
Yeah, and then they seem to be picking the ball up again.
Right.
Conversely, Microsoft got everything right with the 360, incredible, and now they've dropped the ball sort of with Xbox One. It seems to be
cyclical.
It's the mistakes. It's almost like, okay, let's look at everything that Sony got wrong with PS3 and let's replicate it.
Right.
I find it completely baffling.
You have to excuse me, I'm just going to open a can here. Sorry, what do you think, Gareth? Do you agree?
I do. I think it's very from a. I can speak from a PR standpoint, a consumer standpoint. Consumer standpoint, I've ordered an Xbox One because I play FIFA online.
Right.
All my friends play FIFA on Xbox. They're all getting Xbox.
And they're all going to get them as well.
Also, I'm plugging my Sky in the back for when that happens, because that'd be
it's
brilliant.
gone quiet on that, hasn't it?
When the wife is watching Coronation Street, I will go Xbox, Sky Sports News. That'd be brilliant. From a PR standpoint, the key markets for both this 8th console generation is, and I only know that because I wrote a press release with 8th console generation the other day. I didn't just pull it out of my head.
It's not how normal people speak, is it?
Key markets are the US, the UK, where Microsoft is dominant, completely dominant.
For your clients, you mean?
For everybody.
For everyone.
For Sony and Microsoft, the key markets are the US and the UK. Less so for Microsoft because they're doing well there. So they're going to try and get France, Spain, Germany, Italy, which is the other ones.
Is that the FIFA deal then?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Microsoft have done incredibly well in the UK, so they've outsold PlayStation by about 2.5 to 1 in the UK. In the US, it's just much higher. I don't even know the number. Sony has Japan sewed up anyway. Sewn up, even. Sorry, I should speak properly.
It's all right.
Those are the US and the UK are key for Sony this time. So I'm not surprised with that. They've kind of gone out with a confident footing. It doesn't surprise me. What did surprise me is how Microsoft handled its first and second conference. However, the current consensus is that Xbox One has the better games and the PlayStation 4 is the better system.
Right.
we will find out, because at the end of the day, it's games.
Mm.
You know, games sell systems.
Yeah, I mean, the feeling from my side is that they're gonna catch up quite easily. Xbox.
You can never write Microsoft off.
They've got too much money.
Too much money, and they haven't got stupid people working for them.
Next, actually, this one for you, Simon, because you were at Gamescom. From Eric Song, what was your personal best game of Gamescom 2013? From what you saw,
you probably can't. That's really the sort of question that anyone that works at Gamescom, you shouldn't ask them, because they never see anything apart from the inside
their own
of the
games.
booth.
Yeah.
Cubicle.
Yeah, I was basically working in we had a couple of suites just in a nearby hotel. So until I never actually managed to actually get inside the convention centre.
I saw you in the business area, I think, on the last day.
Yeah, I was in the business area having a few meetings. I have to say, I was very... so the time that I did have on there on Friday, I did manage to, because I know PR manager at Warner Bros. Very well, Mark Ward, lovely guy, good PR person as well. Managed to sit in on the demos for Lego Marvel Superheroes and Batman Arkham Origins.
Right.
Both awesome games.
I
have to say, and Lego Marvel Superheroes was running off PS4, and it looked
great, yeah.
absolutely stunning. So I didn't see that many games because I was working the show, but that just blew me away.
I think and you have to sit this one out, Gareth, because they're your games. But they so well, you can say something, but take it with a pinch of salt. Those games are, I mean, the Lego games. They're as close as you're going to get as to a solid, dependable. You can predict they're going to be pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
And same with Batman as well. Hopefully, anyway, it did look good again.
Yeah, I mean that was running off current gen. So it was a 15-minute demo. Looked exactly the same from what I could tell as Arkham Origins,
Arkham City,
City, and Arkham Asylum, which not necessarily a bad thing because they were both great games. But certainly, looking at Lego Marvel Superheroes, there was a noticeable visual difference in terms of what we're on the current generation. There was a noticeable difference with it running off of PS4.
How about from afar, Gareth? You were at was it I-49 that weekend?
I was.
Yeah, the multiplayer event.
Yeah, I was doing a couple of things. One of them was Infinite Crisis was there, so we had the first public hands-on in the UK.
I have to admit, Gareth, I saw Infinite Crisis and I saw Leo Tam playing it. It was someone that
he's a legend in PR.
PR for Capcom and now works for Turbine. So this is Turbine's new free to play MOBA League of Legends style game. It wasn't on my radar. I have to admit, that's why I'm.
I'm not a MOBA player. I'll absolutely admit that. I played the last MOBA game that I did PR for, and I thought it was a good, solid game. Most MOBAs are free to play though, so this obviously Infinite Crisis is free to play, and everybody that played it said it's a bit more accessible than League of Legends, and I think if you can get that, it's great because League of Legends is it's the most popular MOBA worldwide, but it's hardcore. Sure. If you jump in, you will die.
Yeah, it'll take you a long time to even come close to winning.
Yeah, I mean, I might even try it out. MOBAs are interesting, but the problem I have is, and this is with any game, not just MOBAs, is that I've got a little boy, I've got a wife, there's football on.
And then there's FIFA to play.
Yeah, I'm mainstream consumer now. I used to be hardcore. I used to be the guy that would go online on Xbox Live when it first launched at 9 o'clock and go to bed at 5 in the morning.
Right.
Because I didn't need to work because my parents paid for my living.
So those are glory days.
My mum once said to me, "You'll never get a job playing games."
That showed her.
Do you know what? She's never been more proud of me. I'm not joking. She said it a couple of weeks back. I almost cried. It was great.
Oh.
And of course, hardcore. Not anymore.
Infinite Crisis has the DC characters as well, which is kind of nice.
It does. It has lots of licenses with so many characters. It has
multiple versions of Batman, I think I saw.
It does, and they're all great. Check it out if MOBAs or DC is your thing.
All right, that's enough of that plug-in.
Actually, just going back, the one I did speak to a few people at Gamescom, and the word on the show floor was that apparently everyone was saying Titanfall was the game. And I heard there was something ridiculous, like there was 8-hour queues for to be able to play it.
I think on the show floor,
on the show floor, yeah. But everyone that I spoke to that saw it said it was.
I think that goes back to Gareth's point about it being Microsoft's got the games. I don't know how they got it as an exclusive. I expect it'll be a timed exclusive though.
I would imagine it would be, but at the end of the day, if Titanfall comes out and it gets awesome scores, and it's the first truly next generational game with the supposed cloud services. I did the inverted commas again. Sorry. then of course people are going to want to play it. It might sell some systems. You never know.
From what I played, I think it will definitely sell some systems. Next email is from Perry Urban, who just said the sound is much better on the podcast. The interview about Thief at Gamescom was spot on. Excuse me. Patrick Jameson says, "Hi Guy, really enjoying the podcast. The guests are so interesting. Hopefully that's continuing with this episode."
Thanks.
Hopefully we are the pinnacle so far.
This is from Gareth Tomlinson, who says, "Love the podcast, the Gamescom specials. Sound quality was great after a slightly dodgy sounding one the week before. Again, for me, Sony seems to have come across slightly better, although I am biased, but Fergal is certainly more charismatic than Harvey, who sounded like he was bored. Do you and your guests have any opinion on the gaming paradigm changes that are likely to be in the next generation, assuming it's not more of the same? For example, I'm thinking about significant improvements in AI, deeper social elements, etc. A lot of people talk about cloud. You mentioned this briefly.
Yeah.
The cloud is the true next, being able to offload all that computation.
It's been around for so long though, and
you hear I've forgotten the name of the guy actually now. Dan Greenwald at Forza talking about the cloud, and he sells it.
He sells it well.
Yes,
he's doing a good job at PR. But the biggest impact in cloud gaming is the fact that with Xbox One, you sign in on your console. And any console you go, it downloads all of your save games immediately, and the console is your console, customised to you. Not that I do PR for Microsoft in any way, I don't. But that sounds interesting. Whether it translates to making games better, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
And I'll be interested to see how people use it. But right now, I think most people, mainstream consumers, will go, I want better graphics.
Right.
And ultimately, that's what used to sell games. Whenever we used to do adverts in the 90s, you'd have a double-page spread in PC format or in ST Action or whatever, and it would have a massive piece of artwork, 3 or 4 quotes, and it would have 6 screenshots, little ones, because they don't print well, because it was 320 by 200 technical specs. They'd have 6 across the page, and everybody go, oh man, look at those graphics. And it's the same thing with the new generation. I want to see better graphics. I've heard that FIFA 14 looks like you're watching a match.
It is incredible.
I
FIFA
can't
14.
wait.
There are other games though. I mean, Call of Duty springs to mind. That's it looks slightly sharper, but you'd have to do
It's got flapping trees and
it
vegetation.
has, but you have to do one of those you'd have to look side by side to really spot the differences. I think.
Yeah,
from current gen to next gen.
I think the game that was most visually impressive, and I've heard this since Gamescom, is and I haven't heard much about Sony stuff because I don't talk Sony stuff. I pre-ordered an Xbox One.
You're an Xbox guy,
so
yeah.
I must put that out there. I am slightly biased, but when it comes to games, there is no bias at all when I'm doing PR for them. I've heard that the Rise demo that was initially done was awesome looking. I've watched it.
Yeah.
It looks great. But I've heard that when the demo that you showed at Gamescom was entirely different, didn't have QuickTime everywhere.
It was entirely different.
It looked exceptional.
It was more of a wave-based, like a what's it called? From Gears of War. I've totally forgotten the name of the mode. Horde mode, where just enemy after enemy comes. I have to say it was the most disappointing demo I saw.
Really?
Yeah, it was. The guys that were demoing it weren't very into it.
Does Sam Clay listen to your podcast?
He probably, I don't know, maybe.
I'm going to tell him.
Tell him that. Does he really like it? Nate Langston from Wired as well, who saw Rise at E3 and said it was amazing.
Let's name drop people.
I just think it looks incredibly generic.
I don't know. I changed my pre-order today with a publisher that allowed.
Retailer.
A retailer that allows you to change it but keep the date that you ordered it, and I did mine on the 10th of July. So I today went for the pack that is the Day 1 edition with Rise and a Play and Charge kit.
So Rise is your game as well as
perhaps
FIFA.
I've made the wrong choice.
We'll see.
Should I
we'll
swap
see.
again?
I was most impressed with Dead Rising actually. Dead Rising looked horrible at E3 and it looked really good at.
Get that for free though.
Okay, well I suppose.
I'll be honest, I can get that
for free. Okay. Is this the PR sort of network of swapping games?
No, I just go down and trade some really old Xbox 360 games in. If I'm being totally honest, I could do that. I don't know if I will, but I could do that.
All right, well let's move on. Thanks very much for your emails. If you want to email the show for answering the questions next week, it's podcast@guycocker.com. Okay, time for the news section. I've picked out a few of the week's big and interesting news stories. Let's lead with the Nintendo 2DS, which is going to be out on October the 12th for $130. Plays all 3DS and DS games. It's essentially what it says on the tin. It's a 2DS version. Much more plasticky, doesn't have the clamshell design, intended very much, for a younger audience. I think I pulled this from Joystick, and they said no, it's not a joke. If you've seen the video, it does exist. What do you guys think? 2DS, is this a stroke of genius?
You want to fold it immediately, don't you?
It's bizarre.
There was a chance to go hands-on with it in London last week, and I missed the chance. But
I think if you put two kids together, 5, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and one's got a 2DS and one's got a 3DS, I think the one that's got the 2DS is going to start crying.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
They got the rough end of the...
But do you know what?
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it that way. I've thought about it from a standpoint of, if you've got 3 kids in the house, what you can do, get them a 2DS, because nobody actually uses 3D and 3DS. We're all aware of that, right?
Right.
So let's get them this horrible looking Snake thing. Let's go back to the 80s where Fisher Price was king.
Absolutely.
Other brands are available. I don't know. I'm an old skeptic.
It's keenly
not for me.
priced. It's keenly priced. I mean, that will probably equate to £100.
Yeah, maybe it's purely a commercial decision.
I think these things.
But it's a
wild.
bizarre looking thing.
Well, this is the other story of the week. The Wii U Deluxe price. Actually, there were a lot of price cuts announced recently, and someone mentioned to me, I was in the thick of it at the Sony press conference, but the prices that they cut the Vita to and PlayStation 3 were already the prices they were being sold for. So there's not really that much of a price.
Well, those are the official prices.
The official prices.
Retailers will always chop a bit off after that.
But in the US, at least, the Wii U Deluxe price is now $299. And
still too expensive.
Still no games that I want to play on it.
Not a Pikmin fan?
I like the first one.
Yeah.
Is Mario Party out for it yet?
Mario
That's
Party.
the only Nintendo game that I cannot get enough of.
Really?
I used to play
Super
Mario
Smash
Kart
Brothers?
stuff at university. Super Smash Brothers, not my thing. Mario Party. People take the mick out of me for it, actually, but I think it's an amazing game.
Mario Party's good fun.
Get some friends round,
Not
have
as
a
good as it
drink.
used to be, though.
Well, I played it on the GameCube. The GameCube had a brilliant Mario Party.
N64 is the best one. Mario Party 2 is the best Mario Party.
Sounds like we got some Mario Party fans in the
We should have done that. I mean,
Yeah.
let's not record a podcast.
Let's just
next
play.
time. Let's just
Play
play
Mario
Yeah,
Party.
exactly.
And then the final news story is gamers report big problem with SimCity for Mac. This is from the BBC. I always find it interesting to go on BBC and Sky and other websites and mainstream ones and see what's being picked up. So this was on the BBC. Of course, there was a lot of emphasis at Gamescom that Sims 4 won't have this. Online checking system that proves so problematic for SimCity. So there's still
I've
not.
never had a problem with it, by the way. Just so you know.
So you play SimCity on PC?
I haven't got past the tutorial yet. No, I'm joking. I do, and I think it's fine. There's kind of 2 arguments to this. One is from a consumer standpoint, which is me being a consumer. I've never played a Mac game.
Right.
I don't know. I know one person in my entire world of life.
I
that
play
plays
games. I've got a Mac.
I played World of Goo on Mac. Yeah.
But the other argument is Mac gamers want games. There is a company that specifically ports games to Mac, like Civilization. It's an awesome game. It sucks some of my life away when I decide not to play FIFA. But I wouldn't play it on a Mac because I don't understand. The thing that's got a right mouse button?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
You can plug in any...
USB mouse. I've got a USB mouse that's got a left and right mouse button and a mouse wheel.
Then they look really nice.
Can't have it both ways.
The issue is, I wish people did more for more formats. But from the BBC's point of view, they're just jumping on the story from the PC. There's nothing new there. If there was some different problem, great. Then you report it, but I don't think it's an issue.
Do you use your PC? Do you have a gaming PC?
I have it in my bag over
Your
there.
laptop?
Yeah.
Alienware or?
No, it's a Dell Inspiron.
Right, okay. But it plays games?
It's good enough to play Civ 5 at medium settings. I play on PC Civ 5, Football Manager. I'm quite predictable, sorry. Civ 5, Football Manager, SimCity. It's the only place I play strategy games, basically.
Maybe it might play FIFA. Maybe if you wanted to play it on PC.
No. It would have a frame rate of 5 frames per second.
Well, that's this week's news. If you want to find out more about these stories, I will put links to the original stories in the show running order. Okay, time to talk about what we've been doing and also the reviews that have been coming out this week. Let's start with the reviews. So, out this week, Diablo 3 on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. This is on the Xbox 360 at least, currently sitting on a 90 on Metacritic. Interested in playing Diablo on consoles? Or at all?
I'm not interested in Diablo, but I mean this from the nicest possible way. It's really not my kind of game.
Sure.
It reminds me of a bit of a MOBA, and I'm not into them yet. I should find time, but family, television, all that kind of thing. I've heard it's amazing. Everybody that's played it have said it's an amazing game.
The console version is supposed to be very good as well.
Just go and buy it. Support the industry.
Diablo 3 is very good. What about you, Simon? Diablo?
Never been a Diablo fan.
How about Total War Rome 2? I was when I worked on GameSpot, the traffic to this game was phenomenal. It's a crazy popular game. Any interest in it at all?
Well, I mean, time is an issue with me, and to be honest with you, Paradox, we mentioned earlier on, with all their strategy games they play, they suck up all my life in terms of my strategy hours. So I love the Creative Assembly guys do really good strategy games, visually very, very beautiful. I'm sure it'll be great.
And then finally, maybe I can get you with this one: Killzone Mercenary on Vita. Finally out. Seems like it's been in development for a while.
I'll be totally honest. I know where my Vita charger is.
Right.
Don't know where my Vita is.
You think it's gone for good, or is it just under a bed somewhere?
I hope it's not gone for good. I use it for flights and train journeys and stuff like that.
Okay.
The issue that I have is that I don't find myself wanting to go out and buy Vita games, and I do buy games. I don't just trade games.
Sure.
I do buy games, but there's nothing. There is one game. I'm gonna have to do a very short plug.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Batman. Arkham Origins Blackgate.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's coming to Vita, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Vita exclusive. It's amazing.
Cool.
You should. It's one of those games you go, this is why they made the Vita.
Right.
And I'm not a huge fan of the
Vita.
Completely original. I got one.
Completely original too.
Yeah, there are some crossovers, but it's been designed specifically for handheld.
Right.
So it's not a shoddy port that you see from some games. So that's exciting.
So let's talk about what we're playing at the moment. What have you? It sounds like you've been playing some Batman on Vita. What are you playing in general?
I would like to say other games, but FIFA.
Just FIFA still. Are you an Ultimate Team man? Or
do you know what? I have this thing with football. I love it. I went to the Manchester
United. I never guessed
match
through this
yesterday.
podcast that you like football.
So I was at the match yesterday and we won 1-0 against Manchester United. We're top of the league. So forever in time, this podcast will be a record of Liverpool being top of the league. If it changes in 2 weeks' time after the next game, don't care. Right now.
Are they so far ahead that it'll take 2 games?
One game, because we're only 2 points clear of Chelsea, who are on 7 points. But back to the point. FIFA's amazing. It's amazing because it's the only game I'm social with. I used to go and play first-person shooters, driving games. Everything you play online I did, and it's all stripped down to FIFA because I play with my friends, we play as a team, or I play people I've never met in seasons, and it's just great fun, especially when you hear them swearing at the screen when you just teabag them.
Are you looking forward to FIFA 14 then? On?
Yeah, I've got a dilemma. Do I get FIFA for 360? Or do I wait till the Xbox One's out?
I think the Xbox One version is so impressive that is.
This is it. I don't want to seem any less impressive. So do I play it and get used to the system because every FIFA is slightly different?
Yeah.
Or do I wait? And I'm kind of erring on the side of waiting because I've got this stack of games that have got cellophane around them.
Sure. Pile of shame.
Yeah. And
mine's embarrassing.
If I stop playing the moment FIFA comes out, that gives me a good solid, by my reckoning, around about a month and a half to get through some games.
Sure.
I think I need that to rediscover that other games do exist.
It's out in 3 weeks now. It's the end of September.
Is it?
Yeah, the new FIFA.
Maybe I'll get it anyway then.
Yeah, I think it's it does look good from what I've played of it so far. What about you, Simon? What are you playing at the moment?
I'm a little behind at the moment, but I've literally just finished. Well, last week got around to finishing Bioshock Infinite.
Oh wow, yeah, still not done that.
So I can start playing The Last of Us, which I've got there. I've just been
the only man I've met not to play that.
I know, because I'm one of these people. I'm a bit anal. I'm a bit OCD, where I have to finish a game before I start another one. And I was getting a bit.
It's a good trait.
I was getting a bit bored of Bioshock Infinite, to be honest with you.
Right.
I'm a bit disappointed with it. But I was determined to finish it, and having The Last of Us sitting there was my motivation to go back and finish Bioshock Infinite, which I did. So I've got it out of the way, and now I've finished it. Everyone was telling me about how amazing the ending is. So done that, and now moving on to The Last of Us.
Like Gareth said, it's a good trait because sometimes you can forget where you're at in the story or the controls. You get used to another game's control system.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to start playing that this week, and then a few games on iPad.
Nothing good?
iBomber Pacific from Tilingo at the moment, so that's sucking up quite a few hours of my life. Again, I really want to get through that. I've got Plants vs Zombies 2 sitting on my iPad.
Yeah.
But I will not start playing that until I'm done with iBomber Pacific.
That's good. I mean, that's free to play, right? So you just download it and it's there.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a good thing where you can sit and play a game and keep going till you finish it, because that is the issue I have, is that I play a game and go, that's really good, but I've also had this in the post this week.
Yeah.
So
I used to
play an
that.
hour of it.
Yeah.
And
So,
I mean, to my shame, because I finished Arkham Asylum, I got about 3 or 4 hours into Arkham City, and I can't remember what came out. I think it was Skyrim. So I was playing like Arkham City, and then Skyrim came out, and then that was it. I've never gone back to Arkham City, which is a real sort of shame. I want to. But
you can get through that game quite quickly.
I know I'll have to start again.
Story-wise, I think it's a better game than the first one. I enjoyed
Arkham City?
Yeah.
I
VR missions are brilliant. That's where you've got to dive and that kind of thing, and they get really hard as well. But do go back to it. It's awesome.
I know I'll probably have to start again though, because I'll just be like,
you'll
where
forget
am I?
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Have you played any of the other big releases of the last few weeks? I'm thinking I played Rayman Legends, but Splinter Cell or Saints Row or Disney Infinity or XCOM The Bureau or
I've played XCOM The Bureau, but that's because of work
working
on it. I've got Saints Row. That's in the pile of shame.
I've got Saints Row 3 in the pile of shame.
Blimey. But the others, no.
Not so much.
No, I think Sam Fisher was Xbox.
Rayman Legends is absolutely
Charlie,
fantastic.
who you know,
yes.
she's a big Rayman Legends fan, and Stefano was very kind to send her
excellent
that both on Xbox and PS3.
Wow,
so
you've got choices.
Yeah, she's although she's trying to finish Ni no Kuni before she starts that, but she's never going to do that.
No, that's a big one.
You'll never finish that bad boy.
So Rayman Legends is, it's very similar to Origins, but it looks so much. I mean, the animation is it's like you're watching a cartoon. It's beautifully produced.
From what I've seen, it does look incredible.
Yeah,
is Origins a good game?
I love Origins.
That's in my pile of shame.
Yeah, Origins is a great game. I mean, it's better played in multiplayer if you can find anyone in your house that will your wife play at all or not.
My son's got a controller, but he doesn't actually know what to do.
Your son's too young, isn't he? A little bit.
Yeah, my wife would just go, "It's not Sonic. It's not Sonic."
Yeah,
and I'd be like, "Just calm down. It's just a game." She doesn't play games, and my friends are all a bit boring. So yeah.
Well, it's good. It's good in single player. Actually, one of the best formats to play it on is Vita. It really pops on that screen. But otherwise, multiplayer is the way to go. I'll come over. We'll play some. We'll get through
You're
it.
welcome. My wife's away next weekend. Let's have some buddies.
Let's go on. Let's do this. And then I wanted to bring it with you, especially Gareth, because you're an Android man. After numerous iPhones, I've gone Android. I'm giving it a try just to sort of mix things up. I feel like
got the same phone.
I've got the same phone, the HTC One.
I've got the Nintendo-looking case. I can't show you. It's on my desk.
What do you think of it? How, and specifically, how is it for gaming?
I think most Android phones are actually absolutely fine for gaming. The difference is that the majority of games are free on Android.
Yeah.
The quality isn't as good as iPhone because of that, I think. And you have to wait longer to get the same games come across. I think they're fine, but I'm of the opinion that there are certain types of games I'll play on my phone, and they are the driving theory test game, because I haven't passed mine yet.
How's that going?
I'm 34. It's going really badly, obviously.
You're 34 years old?
34 years of age.
Because what's the score you have to get? Is it 30 out of 35?
No, you have to get 42 out of 50 these days.
Okay.
So
I don't drive either, I'm 31.
Yeah, so. I'm learning because I've got a child, so
right.
I have to, I've been told. I don't really play games on my phone. On my Android tablet, I totally play games on it because it's a bigger screen.
Sure.
Simon Byron, from where I work, has just bought the Windows, not the RT, but the proper one, the Windows 8 Pro
tablet.
Yeah,
sure, yeah.
I think it's that one anyway.
Why did he buy that?
Because he wanted to play Skyrim on the train. Because he's got a PS3 controller that he syncs up with it, and he plays Skyrim on the train, and everybody looks at him like, oh my god, but you can play Skyrim on a train and it works.
Is it power? Because
it lasts about an hour. His journey is in about 40 minutes. So there's your answer.
When I went freelance, the first thing I reviewed was this Razer Edge tablet, which is, I think in America it's like $1,500, and that's its whole USP. It's powerful enough to play Skyrim and everything else.
It's a lot for a tablet though.
And it only lasts an hour. I mean, most gaming laptops actually only last an hour as well. But
the Windows tablets are so thin, they're like, you don't think they're that thin, but it's so thin. They could do with doing like a gamer's edition with a bit more of a battery.
So this is what I'm getting to. I did a comparison piece for stuff, and I borrowed one of these Windows tablets, like you say, beautifully thin, very nicely designed with that little kickstand that comes out. It's really nice, but it only played BioShock Infinite at like, I don't know, 10 frames a second. It didn't seem powerful enough.
Yeah.
So
This year's version,
have they upgraded it?
I imagine that they'll upgrade them. You can't keep the same spec for more than
in the mobile
probably
like 6 months,
12, 14 months, because you're essentially a PC.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting point. Avid follower of the Guy Cocker Gamescast or
Games Podcast.
Miles.
Yeah.
From Sports Interactive. They announced the Football Manager Classic for Vita.
Yeah.
And on their forums it says, because I looked, because I was going to buy a Windows RT to play Football Manager on the train, it says the Windows RT tablet is not powerful enough to play Football Manager.
Football Manager, wow.
But FIFA is. Not FIFA, sorry, FIFA on the brain. Vita is.
Right, okay.
I would think they're comparable.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
So Miles, if you're listening, please email in. What is it?
Podcast@guycocker.com, yeah.
And if you don't, I'll tweet about it next week.
I'm sure he'll answer you if you just tweet him.
I'd probably just email him and he'd tell me. But I want an answer in a public forum, please, Miles.
Isn't there an Android version you can get?
I've got the Android version, last year's Android version, because I don't want to pay another £7.
You just told Miles you're not going to buy his game now, and you're expecting an
Well,
answer.
I bought it first time round,
Right.
and I was impressed with it. The problem with handheld versions of Football Manager that are the cut-down versions is it's only interesting during the transfer window.
Right.
It's transfer window tonight, by the way. I'm dying to get.
I'm sorry. Let's wrap up. Let's get this done.
But the Android version's okay. The next version didn't offer enough for me to double the amount of money I spent on it, and this is a thing of being an Android owner.
Yeah.
It's that you spend money, but you're very careful about how you spend it. So there are less games that are 69p that you go, oh, I'll have that. It's mostly free ones, and if there's something you really like, there's a demo version of it always. So you try and go, that's really cool. And some of them are £2.90, like a game called Sprinkle that uses Tegra 3 is £2.19, and all it is a water game where you're moving the water spray around. Brilliant water physics. And I thought, that's a great game. It's a puzzle game. It's brilliant.
Right.
£2.19, no problem. But you're more careful about what you buy.
Sure.
I bought Adobe Photoshop Touch for tablet.
Right.
That was £8 or something.
Uh-huh.
Never used it.
Right.
But so there's the exception to the rule, because let's do that on a tablet.
I need to bring in the NVIDIA Shield to show you then, because that's got Tegra 4, and that's pretty impressive from a technical perspective.
Do you know what legs that's got?
It's not got any legs. It's a massively niche device, but it's really interesting to see him do it.
I think it's the same problem that Ouya has.
I tried Ouya at Gamescom.
What do you think?
I was gobsmacked. Okay, the one I tried, the resolution was pretty low, but in terms of the total immersion.
No, you mean Oculus Rift?
Oh, Oculus Rift,
sorry.
Yeah, not Ouya.
Yeah, Ouya's, I've reviewed it a couple of times, and it gets better each time you boot it up, but it's still a long way off where it needs to be.
Nobody mentions that Ouya has an online DRM check every time you turn it on.
I didn't know that.
Just saying.
Well, you have to sign
nothing
in.
against Ouya, by the way.
You have to sign in every
awesome.
time, right?
Yeah. Ouya's brilliant, but I think the issue that Ouya has is that do you pronounce it Ouya?
I've always said Ouya.
The issue they've got is that they have games in their marketplace.
Yeah.
On an open platform like Android, people expect more than that.
And on Shield and on other, like the WikiPad as well.
Yeah.
You buy it on Android and you get it on that platform, but on Ouya you've got to buy it
Forthcoming
again.
Mojo as well. The guy will kill me if I don't mention that.
Alex.
Mojo's amazing.
This
as is the Shield.
Mad Cats. Yeah, they're all interesting devices.
They're all brilliant, but you need an open platform. You need, and the key thing that all of them need to do is not just have this one bit of software and then leave it. They need to update Android, because most of the stories you read is Android, this version is coming to this phone. People want the latest version.
They do, yeah.
They can't just stay stagnant. They've got to keep updating the software.
Absolutely.
To make sure the hardware's getting the best use.
You liked Oculus Rift though? You were enjoying it?
I did. I really, really did.
It is great. I played with the 3D version, and it was another highlight. The standard version was a highlight of E3, and the high def version was
the head tracking was just incredible.
Was it? Yeah. Which demo did you play?
It was a company, independent British developer that was on the Yuki stand, Faiju. They had some, there was still some way off from being sort of like commercially releasable.
Sure.
There were more tech demos, but just they had one, I can't remember what it was called, it's a Cascade, but it's basically set on a molecular level. It's like Alzheimer's.
Right.
It's like Alzheimer's, and basically what you have to do is sort of go into like the body and fight off like the Alzheimer's cells from that are sort of invading the body. So you kind of go in and you've got all these cells, and you can see the Alzheimer's sort of like cells invading on a molecular level.
So it's an educational thing?
Well, it is at the moment. I mean, I think they're going to kind of try and sort of maybe pull it a bit more away from that and make it a bit more of a game.
Sure.
A proper game.
It's sometimes easy to get funding, though, isn't it, through education?
Yeah, absolutely.
Might be why it is.
The fact that you can kind of go in and you put the headset on and you can look around and you go, oh wow, there's a cell up there. I'll go up to that one, and obviously you've got the controller that you can move up there. But then you're looking around inside like the human body, and it's just incredible.
It's incredibly immersive. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was really impressed with it. Just in terms of the way it fools the brain.
Exactly. The demo I played was you're flying around this castle environment, but your body, your natural instinct kicks in when you're about to hit a wall. It's like don't walk into that wall. It's to your mind, it's almost real.
Yeah.
Or when you're standing on a ledge and you can see the drop, it's like don't go over it. Don't go over it.
Exactly.
Your natural.
Unless you have a squint.
And do you have a?
I am one of those awkward people that cannot see in 3D. So having two
Oh
different
right,
things,
I've had this come up quite a bit. Yeah.
I'm one of the people that Oculus Rift does not work for.
Doesn't work at all.
However,
Wow.
I can use it. I've tried it.
Do you wear it with your glasses then? Can you do that?
You have to take them off. There's kind of magnifying bit
Right.
in there as well. But I'm kind of blind almost. But I can see it being a brilliant device.
So 3D movies are the same. They don't.
I've got a 3D TV, believe it or not, but that's for the wife.
Right, not for you.
Well, she didn't need a 3D TV, but I wanted one with it in because it had all the bits and bobs that went with it. But I'm unfortunate, but I miss out on awesome things like Oculus Rift because everybody I've spoken to about it goes, it's amazing.
It's really cool.
I was very impressed with it. I mean, that's the first thing that I've experienced in the games industry for a long time where I've gone, wow.
Yeah.
This could, obviously the technology is still quite new, once they refine the technology, this can definitely elevate games onto a completely another level.
Yeah, I'm low to give these guys a plug just because it's a commercial organisation, but it's Virgin have got in Shoreditch in London have got a gaming space they've set up for the next month and a half, I think it is. They've got Oculus Rift, they've got quite a few headsets down there, so if you're in London and you want to check it out, and it's totally worth the effort to go and check it out. It's in London at the moment, which is pretty good. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go and check the football transfer results and everything.
The page is up on my laptop, on my desk. I'm not joking.
Gareth, where can we find you on Twitter?
G_Williams.
G_Williams. And Simon?
At Johnny Atom.
Guys, thanks so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Guy.
If you have feedback, please send it to podcast@guycocker.com. Next week, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing. Let me have a look in my calendar. Just one sec. I've forgotten what I'm doing next week. Next week, I'm looking at doing a retail special with MCV magazine included as well, some retailers, so hopefully that will come about.
His diary is quite colourful.
It is,
in case
yeah.
anybody wondered, his diary is really
It's
colourful.
got lots of different colours. So we'll see you then. If you want to get each episode delivered as it's available, subscribe in iTunes to have them delivered. And if you're feeling generous, leave me a review as well. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you next week.